that live there off of Golf Drive or right off of West Claiborne?
No, ma'am.
Are they aware of this?
The immediate landowners have been notified by mail, and it's been in the paper twice.
Well, I've heard from a few people in that Beechwood Drive area, and they were confused. They thought it was on their side. These are going to be low income or retirement.
Mostly just family oriented. It's the same, I don't know if it's the same developer, but the same architect, I guess. So these are very similar to the Monroeville one. Similar to that. But it's supposed to be, say 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. And not necessarily for
Kathy,
we're planning 1, 2, and
Beg your pardon?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
They're 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartment units. They're 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartment units.
Right, right. I read all that and read what happened at the last meeting, which apparently we had a miscommunication and I was not there and I apologize.
Kathy, you were at the last meeting. You came in late at the last meeting. Because we texted your phone number, didn't we?
yeah, we had you on Zoom.
Okay. You say so. I must have come in on my broom, I guess.
Kathy, you were talking about contacting people. I spoke with Will Rowell, who is his residence is probably the nearest where the residences will be on this place and and everything. And while he wasn't necessarily excited about having it in his backyard, he didn't have any particular strong feelings, either way. So.
Well, my only real concern was about the a lot of what goes on around Marengo Street and down that neighborhood, because I hear about it all the time from my dear sweet help who's been with me for 40 years. And I'm just wondering if if that is going to be a problem down the road.
I think what Mr. Davenport has told us in that last meeting that it's not Section 8 residences, if that's correct, but you could probably tell us more detail about.
One of the things that I'm sensitive to is, of course, I want to be a good neighbor to everybody, but I understand the Clausel neighborhood has had, I guess there's a group that has been trying to redevelop Clausel, get some investment. So part of what the power of the credit is, the tax credit and the investment that we make, is that activity breeds activity. And the investment that this brings, it will hopefully, and it should, is bring positive investment into that, help spur investment into the Clausel community. And and start to hopefully have a positive impact. I'm doing a very similar kind of redevelopment, if you will, in Albany, Georgia, where we actually came in and demolished um, a property that was troubled, to put it nicely, and actually came in and raised it, and have come in, put in a new development identical to this, just a few more units. And the impact on the immediate area and then the ripple effect through the community has been pretty impressive. And the same thing is what the goal is here. And I can assure you that I'm pretty sensitive. Anytime I have trouble in my properties, it is from the neighborhood around us. We're cautious about security. We do security cameras. We do fencing where it's appropriate to make sure that not only people from my property aren't wandering out, but other people around us aren't wandering in. So, I am sensitive to your concerns. It's a valid concern, and one that I'm hoping in a twofold manner can be addressed, not only through being diligent in how we situate the property and try and control access, but also the investment and the positive impact it'll have in the neighborhood around us.
Please don't misunderstand me, Mr. Davenport. I'm all for any improvement to Monroeville, to Clausell, to some of these other communities. But I guess I've always felt like you need to clean up first, and then you go in and do it, because with all due respect, you're not from Monroeville. You haven't lived here most of your life. And I think if you listen to what some of these other people on the Planning Commission have to say, this is a grand idea. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not, and I think your idea to try to improve things in Clausell is a great idea. Clausell is, and has always been for years and years and years, a mixed community, as far as you have very nice middle class African American people, and then you've got a bunch of thugs. And you don't have to go, if you look at Marengo Street, when you're coming off of East Claiborne, you don't have to go very far around the curve to find yourself in a mess. And that all runs right behind this area where you're planning to build these apartments. And I would hate to see too, your investment in this particular area be destroyed, burned, or just, generally desecrated in any way. And that's just where my concern comes from. Because as I said, you're trying to overcome a situation that needs to be overcome before you put something new in there that will be possibly torn up. Sorry, that's just.
I appreciate the concern. Thank you. No, I appreciate the candidness,
Is there any,
and I'm open to any other citizens or thoughts on what else needs to be addressed. I am all ears.
we have a couple more people logged in. Are any of these people residents in the vicinity? Them, Landon? Give them an opportunity if they get logged in. We have some new people that's joined us. If you're a resident in the vicinity of this proposal, and you have something you'd like to say, now's my opportunity to do so. All right, another opportunity, this will be your last opportunity to speak. If no one has anything else, we'll put it before a vote to approve. All in favor of allowing the move forward? Any opposed? All right, it'll move forward to the zoning board. I appreciate everyone tuning in, and we don't have any other.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Sorry. Okay, you're welcome. Not having any other business for the planning commission, need a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned. All right, we'll move to the zoning board now. We got 10 minutes for the zoning board. So actually, it's something like that. The zoning board, the facility is going to be actually, I think Mary may email it to me. Same thing for the site plan for Dollar General. I mean, the only thing is the park complex.
5:30, so we're gonna bring the February 1st zoning board of adjustments to order. We're gonna have just a little bit of procedure here between Jim and I for just a moment. All right, thank you everybody for coming. We do have four. Myself, Barry McKinley, Billy Black, Eric back there, and so we've got 4 out of the 6, so we're good. Everyone got a copy of last month's minutes? Do we have a motion to approve? Second, any discussion, additions, deletions, comments? Silence, approval. Got 3 items tonight that we're going to discuss. And Tim, I'll let you introduce all 3 and we'll have discussion.
Okay, the first item for discussion is a conditional use of an existing half of the building at 736 South Alabama Avenue. The conditional use is for a company called The River Runs Through It Distillery, Inc. And how the zoning reads in B2 is the uses of buildings can be manufacturing incidental to retail sales where articles are sold on premise. So their plan is to have a small batch distillery there and put it on a truck for commercial sales to go other places, wholesale, and to be able to walk in and buy bottles retail. Now, Mary and I looked at the zoning. They're trying to get in business by April. And so we're sort of fast tracking, but we're not doing it without turning every stone over. The city council votes tomorrow to amend the liquor ordinances to allow this type of facility, because it's actually not even thought of when we have our liquor license laws written. So our vote tonight is contingent on them passing that tomorrow. Does that make sense? So according to the zoning laws, the way that we've read it, manufacturing incidental to retail sales where articles are sold on premise matches what they would be doing. They would be manufacturing on site, selling it from that site. Does that make sense? Does anybody have a question? Brenda, you need an update? Yes, please. So we just had a late member walk in, so I'm going to talk to them real quick. So there's a request for conditional use of a building on South Alabama, or the back side of the building, to have a micro distillery. So they will be able to manufacture there. They'll be able to sell it wholesale from that location. And they'll have a small shop where you can walk in and buy it. All of that is cool by Alabama state liquor laws. Whatever we vote tonight, if we vote to approve it, it's conditional on the city council amending our liquor laws tomorrow. already on the agenda for tomorrow, so if we don't approve it here, somebody can come in the future and open micro. So that's the nutshell.
Discussion, questions, concerns?
Liquid. Liquid.
It's a whiskey. What I was told,
As soon as you start growing blue agave on all that extra land next to you, we could start doing tequila.
No, I mean, we need to go look at the building, obviously, make sure it meets the requirements for the fire department.
This is the side from next.
It is behind Sandy's hair
Yeah,
salon,
okay.
not in the same building as her,
That's-
but next to it.
my understanding is set plans will be provided.
They have to have a stamp set of drawings.
Anything else?
This use of buildings is up under conditional use, not up under permitted use.
That, aren't we voting?
Yeah, it's conditional.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the condition though was basically the city council passed, do we want any other conditions on it? I mean, at some point, can it be added to the on-site consumption could occur or something like that?
On the state liquor license, you can have a tasting in what,
It's,
Mary, do you want to speak on what we're proposing, what the city is looking at to adopt?
the state dictates how you do tastings. So they have certain measurements and requirements that we can't set forth our own amount of tastings. So we have to go by what the state mandates. So the state is the one that will set the restrictions on tastings.
And I think
And it's being added to the alcohol ordinance as well. I think two products at 1/4 of an ounce.
it's if you go for a tasting, the state, and what we will adopt is two.
Not even a 1/4 of an ounce, and only 2 products.
Up under prohibited uses, it calls for blending or mixing plant. That's not gonna follow the same guidelines, right? Use of buildings, new residence parks, 7 or less blending or mixing plants, automobile, wrecking, concrete plant, female, farm mill, other industrial uses. Under prohibited uses, the blending or mixing plant. So this should be under some definition of like a distillery, not that.
Correct. I thought that was like more typical.
I mean, I don't know, it doesn't have a definition of what a blending and mixing plant is, that's why I'm asking before we approve it. I wouldn't think that would be it,
Yeah, what's the sentence, what's right after that?
but after that, it says automobile, wrecking, concrete plant, feed mill, farm mill, other industrial uses.
I didn't like blending or mixing, but to me, that sounds like you're mixing concrete or something like that. Not something that's small. But there's no fumes, there's no anything like that.
Would it really be any different than a baker mixing things up in there?
No, I mean, that's,
That's probably what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
arguing, I'm just
Right,
saying
so I
this,
think, I'm just trying to think through, I think that would probably be the argument, similar to any type of cooking.
yeah.
But it looks to me like, I existing plant definition, and everything that pops up is in regards to ready mix plants, concrete plants. That's one.
Okay. Ms. Thompson, Mr. Ms. Abrams, do you have anything to add at this point?
Barry, we have not been, we can't hear anything that's going on there. Can you hear me?
I can.
Mary, it looks like at the top is all, it says Monroeville, Alabama.
Meant to prevent like a
Yeah.
echo.
Because we're going off.
Darla, we've been discussing just the, really the,
You might need to use the phone unless the computer doesn't work.
I'm trying now, Barry. Just use your preacher voice.
It has been used.
Your phone here?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Darlene, can you hear us now?
I can.
Okay. Basically, what we've done to this point is we brought the distillery up for a motion. We discussed it here. We've had just a couple of questions, basically on definition of some of the language in the ordinances. I think we've determined that the distillery does meet the qualifications of an F1 type of occupancy. So we do believe we can take a conditional use vote on this. And we were just asking if you had anything you wanted to add.
No, he said, excuse me, Corey's here with me and we don't really have anything to add. We agree. I think we heard the word fumes and there should not be any fumes. And I think they'll make good neighbors there and not cause any problems.
Does this require anything from anybody, any neighbors adjacent? No. With that being said, do we have a motion? Second? All in agreement? Passes. And note that I abstain.
I'm sure
We should-
technology.
Right, may be involved, so I don't know if I will, but so I'll just abstain since we're.
Okay.
I will sign the conditional use and you can get it from Tim and he will tell you what's the next steps. Good luck.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Barry, and the other
Yeah.
committee members.
There. Okay, so the second item on our list is the approval discussion for the development plan for Clement Park. It's gone through the planning commission. It is outside. It is right on the line with the city limit. But there is some, under the zoning ordinance, we're supposed to approve plan developments for a couple miles out. So, are y'all familiar with any of that plan? Or do you want to, that's the plan, yes, sir? Sidewalk. Billy, there will be a couple modifications to that, but that's basically the plan in general. Have you got some? So, it does not have a zoning because it's outside the city limits, but at some point it will, there's a thought process that it will be asked to be annexed into the city at some point in the future. Probably closer in the future than later in the future. So, does anybody have a discussion or thought process on that? That's all been covered in the zoning board. Planning commission, I'm sorry. Which we just did.
We had a public hearing, and there was nobody that had any comments.
And without a zone or ordinance, I'm not sure exactly what we can do other than just maybe
Approved for the next step.
voice concerns and not sure what's happening there.
I think we got the call.
What you saying there? It's not zoned out there at this point because it's outside the city limits. And of course, we're the zoning board of adjustments. We give conditional use and whatever. So I'm not sure exactly what we do at this point, other than if we have concerns or if we want to make sure that what goes on forward, that we have comments on it. I'm sure Bill's actually fire service out there and everything. Of course, Tim's got concerns that it's done correctly. Looks like they do have an architect on board, so I'm sure they're working through that as it becomes. So, any comments, discussion on that? This first one I've actually come across that was outside the city limits. So.
That's exactly what Bob said.
I guess my only thing, and we talked about this in the Zoom meeting to the planning commission last time, is what if they do annex in, what the zoning would be, and if it meets the requirements of the local zone that's there currently. You probably have to turn the
Your volume.
the volume down or something. It may be picking up on this and
If you have a verbiage or motion that would ensure that it is zoned correctly when it becomes annexed, that we could have a condition.
well, I don't know, I'm going to have to look through and see exactly what zone it is. Tell me about top of the head, what's going to allow this many apartment units. And
So that would be R4, I believe. The adjacent neighborhoods in the city limit are R1. The League of Municipalities says that if we annex something into the city limit, we take it as it is. So in other words, it's not spot zoning because we are assuming something that would be built.
And then too, we got like, when Eastwood was, annexed Eastwood into Monroeville, they got some drainage issues over there. So now they are the city's issue.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know.
Yeah, so this will tie into it's already going to tie into the water board. It's already going to tie into the sewer board. The Alabama Power has plenty of service there. So they have a retention pond for drainage, and they already have some natural drains kind of going there beside the highway that go down to the creek at the bottom of the hill. So drainage on that site is not going to be an issue because it's basically a slope site.
I would just make it, you know, be aware of it. Once you annex, it becomes the city property.
Right. But this is the discussion. If we're annexing, we're just hashing it out. But thank you.
Okay.
yeah, but on that same aspect, it's got to have certain depth of asphalt and all that type of stuff to meet the city street requirement.
Mhm.
And the water board is going to require certain things. And I think all of that's going to be met if they plan to annex into the city, if we have any regulatory authority.
And
Or,
we do already, because it falls into our territorial jurisdiction.
I just don't want them to get out there and build the facility once outside the city and then want to annex in, much like some other stuff that's happened. And we acquired stuff without adequate fire protection and things like that. Which I'm gonna help mix it with that, but
Well, let me ask you this, could we put a condition on it that all ordinances of the city of Monroe will be met as our condition for giving approval?
Without agreement.
I'm not sure if that's the correct way to word it.
I'll make that in form of a motion, that's what you said. That,
Hey, I'll second it.
well, the motion would be that they have to meet all the city ordinance requirements upon fire protection, streets, drainage,
Water, sewer.
everything from basically a subdivision regulation or requirement that we would anybody in the city for future plans of annexation. Yeah, just write it like you want, but so that it says all.
To be considered for annexation.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to be annexed in, then it's got to meet all our requirements that we would require of anybody in the city. As far as fire protection, streets, drainage, everything.
If you'll draft that up and shoot it to all of us,
Okay.
and then we can vote on it based on what we think's coming, and then we can make sure that writes, and then I'll sign the, after everybody tells me they're good with the verbiage, I'll sign the conditional use. That sound like a reasonable way to
It's not a
approach it?
conditional use, it's just a plan approval.
Well, yeah. Will help. So do we get a second, Barbara? Brenda, gave a second, correct?
Yep.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? So it carries.
Okay.
Then we have one more, I think, Tim, don't we?
Yep, we have one more. This is a proposed development outside the city limits, but way outside the city limits. We kind of have a fast track project going ahead for a new Dollar General at the intersection of Highway 47 and Highway 84 in Mexico. And they have, the only thing that they don't fall under our jurisdiction for is a landscape ordinance. They've been in touch, the power company is good. Mexican Water Board is working out if they can get the water there. If not, they will have a well and a septic, they will have a septic system. The fire department in Mexi is aware of it, and they're working out to see what the retainage requirements would be on a well to support a hydrant. They've crossed all their T's. They've done all their homework. There's nowhere on the west side of the county to buy a Coca-Cola or a honey bun. So I think it's a good location. But
And I think we probably got to approach that the same way we just approached this. It's about, probably the only thing we can do is we would, so as long as they meet
yeah,
all the ordinances of the city, but
except for the landscape plan.
that wouldn't.
Because they're never going to be annexed in.
Because we require certain things on fire protection that they probably can't meet out there. And the likelihood of that ever being annexed is very minimal.
You know, though, we still act as the city of Monroeville. If they want to go through the plan, I still think we should, our official stance should be that they should meet our requirements. Or we don't need to deal with it.
Well, I think that exceptions have to be made, like what he says about water or fire.
Well, I don't want it coming back in 2 years and they have a problem over there and say, well, you approved plans, knowing we didn't have proper fire protection in here. I don't want to do
Do
that.
you know anything in particular about that? Really?
I mean, like we require 8-inch main minimum on fire protection or fire hydrants and stuff. I don't know if the line running down side of the 84 is even 80.
Deanna, can you hear me?
You got to-
There you go. I can hear you, Tim, but I could not hear the others.
Okay, so there's been a discussion about if conditionally approving the plans, if they meet all the standards that Monroeville city ordinances require. So one of the discussions is the water main from Mexi Water Department. Did they say they could they do an 8-inch water main? Or I know you were talking to them about it, but they may not have figured it out yet.
They have not confirmed. When I spoke with Mr. Harper, he was okay with either a 6-inch or an 8-inch. He said pressure would not be an issue there, so either 6-inch or 8-inch line would work to support the hydrant. And so now I'm waiting to hear back from Liz Richardson with Mexi Water on the design. Either way, we'll have to bring bore across the road to bring it to our side of the highway. And we'll do whatever size is necessary to provide for the fire requirements.
Okay. And the only other thing that I know of off the top of my head would be a landscape plan, including some trees and shrubbery kind of things.
We can look at that.
Would Broadway be interested?
That's not a problem.
Then everything else you're already doing matches. They're putting in a turn lane per highway department. They're aware, highway department's already aware of it. So what we'll do is draft a letter to that effect and email it, and the zoning board will sign off on it, and I'll email it to you.
Okay.
So the effect of the letter is that we will approve this, knowing that the Broadway group will develop it as if we're in the city limit.
Okay. And that is because you expect it to be annexed in the future, or what is the explanation for that? I will be asked.
Okay, the question is, if we do what we just discussed and submit a letter that says, we approve your plan if you do everything conditionally as it was to be in the city limit. Deanna, basically that's because the territorial jurisdiction for a city in the state of Alabama extends 3 miles past the city limit. So we're trying to make sure that zoning or zoning that plans permitted by the city kind of meet the city standard in lieu of an area that doesn't have zoning plans.
Understood.
Now, as I said, everything that you've already got, everything that y'all are doing already matches the city ordinances, except for the landscape plan and the water main.
Yep. I just needed a justification for on my end. That's all.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it.
I can, in the email, I can write that more fluidly than I'm speaking right now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Who told you that 6 or an 8 would work? Was this an engineer? 6 or 8 inch main?
Shay?
They are?
Yeah.
The ours is a minimum 8 inch. So I don't know what their main supply off of highway is, but this building should be sprinkled. And then if you put a hydrant there to supply the sprinkler.
It should be sprinkled?
This building is not sprinkled. It's a 9,100 square foot with 7,300 sales floor, square foot sales.
1 second. Okay, go ahead. Deanna, go ahead.
So the building that we're proposing is a 9,100 square foot building. The sales floor is 7302 with a firewall between the storage stockroom area and the sales floor. And so based on life safety, that wouldn't require sprinkler.
If we do it to the Monroeville ordinance, it's got to be at 80. But, you know, it's like I said, I'm not sure what the main is on Highway 4, because I don't have any dealings with it. You've got a 16 main out there. That's the 8.
Now, what's the equivalent of that if it was a well? Because they have a lot that are operating off the wells.
Fire code requirements. Basically, this is gonna be a minimum 3,500 gallon a minute structure. That's what we would be graded on. According to ISO, any structure within the city, we have to provide a minimum 3,500 gallons per minute flood. And I don't see where this would be any different. Now, Nixie is not a class 3, so their requirements may be different. I'm not sure, but that if it was in Monroeville, we'd have to meet 3,500 gallons a minute flood.
Okay, so there is this fire issue appears to be kind of a sticking point because we have 2 different fire departments and one's already signed off on it.
And that's what I'm saying. If you're in Monroeville, you're going to have to put in a minimum of an 8-inch line. Out there, I don't know that an 8-inch line.
Well, is that an exception to what we've been discussing, the 8-inch line, since it's not our fire department? Is that something that we can agree to, or?
I think they need to do a GPM requirement on the building and determine what size it needs.
That's what I was just about to say, as long as somebody would assure us that they're meeting the minimum gallons per minute, I think we could probably sign off on that.
And who calculates that?
You can do it. Huh?
They're mechanical
Yeah, I mean,
plumbing.
the engineer for the job should be able to tell you that, but I mean, we can take the square footage of it and kind of give you a pretty close estimate. I say, I don't know that there's any annual hydrant flow occurs in Mexico to know what the GPMs are, if there's even a hydrant in the facility.
There will be putting one on site. There is one across the road down the way. It's about 500.
About 300 feet from us across the highway. That's why we would be bringing one to our property.
And if we figured it, and it may require larger than that, then it would, but again, the capacity of Mexican main on Highway 4 may not even be 6 feet. I don't know what their main is. That's the problem with us regulating stuff that's so far out of town.
Yeah, I should have had Shay on this meeting.
Any other discussion? Does anybody want to make a motion?
Tim, I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Oh, he asked if anybody else had a question and does anybody want to make a motion?
We're at 47 going up through Ball back to Armour. We're London 84, basically in that field, Papa Road.
Oh, okay. See, I wasn't. Yeah, I was trying to figure relate.
Yeah, hold that map up, or that plan that they can see.
So past the Lowry.
Yeah, just go all the way to next to the US 84, it's across the road in the field.
This is that
Yeah,
triangle.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
So it's like way on the west side.
Yeah, you're right, there's not any store there.
You know where we're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's,
No, it's gonna be where 47 intersects with Highway 84 in Mexico.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I mean, you want to motion?
I don't care, I mean, it dies. I'm not gonna make a motion. But if somebody wants to make a motion, otherwise it die on the floor.
I personally feel like that we don't have any regulatory authority that far out, and that will, then that it will not be annexed in.
I feel the same way. So we don't take any action on
I mean,
You don't think we have authority?
We shouldn't just.
well, I mean, I think that we're going to put stipulations on them to meet Monroeville requirements, and there's never going to be a Monroe. You know, and some of that may be what they wouldn't normally spend, you know. Now, if it was a property adjoining us and they plan to come in, then I think we would have.
Deanna, can you hear?
I can.
Okay.
You know, and I'll help Nixie with figuring out what kind of water flow and all they need, but I don't see why I should be putting requirements on them.
Okay, so I'm going to read from the zoning ordinance. So the state of Alabama gives territorial jurisdictions to municipalities for either a 3 or a 5 mile radius from the city limit line. And the zoning ordinance reads, any development proposal that requires a development plan review shall be reviewed by the zoning board of adjustments. So this is a plan that falls in that category. So that's why we're talking about it.
You say they're meeting all the requirements that we already have for the city.
The planning, the building, and the parking meet all those requirements. The septic tank will meet the septic tank rules of the state. The only thing that's not covered in here is our requirements for the water main, because I've been discussing it with Shay, and the landscape ordinance.
I mean, if you want to do.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how to word a.
Tim, could the approval be worded such a way that it's contingent upon those items that the city of Monroeville would have authority over, like the building and the landscaping, and would that help them?
Not really, that's the question, is about the regulatory authority of requiring what size water main you have and things like that. And without knowing what they have out there, or the well and things. I think you're going to have a GPM number so we can determine what size main is going to be required. If you go with city ordinance, it's 8-inch minimum, but it may require larger. Now, I don't think it would, but you know, you don't ever know. Or it may require it to be a loop line, something like that, to get the GPM required. If you need some, I'll make a motion that we approve it based on the city's requirements, contingent upon the capabilities of their water system.
Does your mechanical and plumbing engineer, will they do a fire study of this structure or not?
I'm sorry, is that directed to me?
Yes, ma'am.
I wouldn't normally, because we've already designed to code. So it's not something I would normally do. If we need to do it because you're questioning the pressures for a hydrant, we're glad to help with whatever we can do. In the past, when I've had to have flow tests done, it's under the assistance of the fire marshal for the area.
But that's the issue. There's no fire marshal in the area. It's state that regulates that because MEXI is a volunteer department that doesn't have the capability of fire inspection.
So we just want a flow test to understand the gallons per minute that we could get to the site? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, the determination is what I was trying to figure out is the gallons per minute needed for the structure. If they have the capability to provide that, because I don't know what size water main they have out there. And if we require them to put in an 8-inch or require you to put in an 8-inch, but it's only being supplied by 4, that's all that's really done is cost you money. You know, it's not going to increase their GPM. I believe you're going to have to do some fire flow on the hydrants to find out even if there's capability there, if you have to supplement it or whatever. And putting a well in to provide 3,500 gallons a minute is going to be pretty extravagant. And I'm not sure, I know if you were in Monroeville, you can't dig a well anyway without going through the water board, and they don't allow all that because you may contaminate the water table. So I'm not sure about mixing.
So when I spoke with Miss Richardson last week, she didn't seem to hesitate in her feedback as to developing a design. She said that she'd get right to it. So the only thing I can do at the moment is wait to see what she can get me so that I can follow up with Tim or with you all or however you want to handle that.
Is that Ms. Richardson at the Mexi Water Board?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
She was working on the design to bring water to the site, and she was aware that the goal was to have a hydrant on the property.
That's kind of how she worded it.
I make a motion that we approve that they meet all the requirements that we would set forth, including fire protection, but I think it's going to be contingent upon if they have the ability to provide the appropriate fire protection.
Well, and that may be well how we have to deal with it. It's just say you've got a meeting and then they come back and tell us what they're going. Because we just don't know.
And what Mixie has is a tanker, and they may be able to supplement what the hydrant can provide with their tanker. There's several different ways it can be done, but you just got to know what it is before we got on them and we approve it, and then they have a fire and the water wasn't there.
Keep in mind also that this is a metal building.
Got a lot of combustibles on the inside.
Agreed. I just wanted to put that out there.
We appreciate that comment.
I guess that would be my motion, that we approve this base contingent on they have adequate fire flow.
Have a second?
Second.
No. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Is that 3?
4.
Okay, I'll write that up and get it to you tomorrow.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business? Motion to adjourn.